I need the lights in my house low. That's not a preference, it's a genuine need. So, bright overhead lighting, it does something to my nervous system that I can only describe as a kind of sort of buzzing, right? So, fluorescent lights, bright lights are really hard for me. Shops, airports, hospitals, I can manage them. I've learned to manage them, but they cost me something. So, loud restaurants are hard. Not unpleasant in the way they might be for someone who just prefers quiet. They're actually hard in a way that sometimes I really require some real recovery afterwards. So I've sat at dinner tables with people who were having a wonderful time, and I've spent half the evening managing the sensory input from everywhere rather than just being able to be present. And then there's the other side of it, the side that looks like a gift, and most of the time it is, but also has its own cost as well. So I can walk into a room and I can know within minutes who's struggling, who's pretending, what the undercurrent is of that room. So I can read people, not in a woo-woo psychic way, in a specific and accurate way. I know when someone says they're fine and it means the opposite. I know when there's tension between two people and nobody's calling it out. I can pick up on things that other people don't notice, and I always have. I'm a highly sensitive person, and it took me a long time to understand that this was a trait, not a flaw. So there was research on this that started. In the 1990s, there was this psychologist called Elaine Aron. She identified what she called sensory processing sensitivity. And it's amazing because it's present in roughly 15 to 20% of people. And here's the thing that I find really profound. It shows up in over 100 species. So not just humans, fish, birds, primates, which means that this is not an accident of modern life. It also means it's not a psychological glitch. It's evolutionary. So in any population, some members of that population need to be wired this way. They need to be able to process more deeply, to notice what others miss, to be attuned to subtleties that less sensitive individuals will walk straight past. So I want to be clear, the trait, it's not positive, it's not negative on its own. But what Elaine Aron found is that what determines whether high sensitivity becomes a source of richness or a source of suffering is largely whether the people around you growing up respond to it with understanding or whether they respond to it with shame. And most of us who are highly sensitive were not met with understanding. Most of us were told in some version to toughen up. Stop being so sensitive. Let it go. Don't take everything personally. You're too much. And the sensitivity doesn't go away when you're told that. It goes underground. So you'll learn to hide it, to manage it, to perform a version of yourself that takes up less emotional space. And that performance running constantly in the background of every interaction that you're having is exhausting in a way that has nothing to do with the sensitivity itself. So my ability to read people that I described a little bit earlier didn't come from nowhere. It came at least partly from growing up in an environment where reading people accurately was important. I had to know how someone was feeling before they said anything because I needed that information to keep myself safe. That's how sensitivity often works. It gets shaped by early experience. So the nervous system learns to be on alert, it learns to gather information quickly, it learns to notice the subtle signals, and that capacity stays, and it becomes part of how you move through the world. So in my work, it's genuinely useful. I can tell when something I'm teaching isn't landing. I can sense when someone in a session is close to a breakthrough or something important. I can be present with people in a way that I think comes directly from this trait. But it means I need a lot of alone time. Not because I'm antisocial. I'm actually an extrovert. And all the tests I do always come back an extrovert. But the input doesn't stop. So the processing doesn't stop. And without genuine quiet, without genuine recovery time, my system gets overloaded. And for years, I thought there was something wrong with that. And I thought I should be able to sustain more, handle more, be out in the world more. And I watched other people move through these crowded, noisy, high stimulation environments and come out the other side apparently fine. And I felt like I was failing some basic test of coping, but I wasn't failing anything. My nervous system was just doing something different. And what neuroscience has shown is that highly sensitive people have more activation in areas of the brain associated with empathy, with awareness, and with depth of processing, particularly the insula, which is involved in both our bodily awareness and our emotional processing. So the brain is doing more with the same input, and that takes a lot of energy. Of course it does. So needing recovery time isn't weakness, it's physics. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Sensitivity is not the same as fragility. This is the confusion that the world makes, and it can take a long time to untangle it. Fragility is being unable to tolerate difficulty. Sensitivity is being deeply affected by it. These are completely different things. So a highly sensitive person's able to endure enormous complexity, they're able to hold difficult emotional territory. They're able to sit with someone in their worst moments with a quality of presence that other people simply can't access. That's not fragility, that's capacity. And it comes from a real depth of processing. It comes from the same nervous system that makes the lights too bright and the restaurants too loud. So you can't have one without the other. And I've stopped wanting to. So what changes things is this. It's not learning to feel less. That's not available. And honestly, you wouldn't want to be. What changes things is stopping the fight against it. So building a life that has actual room in it for how you're wired. I need more quiet. I need more recovery time. I need fewer environments that cost me too much. That's why I live, in nature, in the jungle in Costa Rica. You need permission to leave early, to say no, to need what you need without any kind of elaborate justification. And you need to stop the comparison. Stop measuring yourself against people who are simply wired differently. They're not coping better than you, they're processing differently, that's all. So if you're like me, here's your experiment for the week. At some point in the next few days, when you feel drained after an interaction or drained after an environment, I just want you to name it honestly. Not why can't I handle this? But just, this costs me more than it costs some people. And that's real information about what I need. And you write it down. Treat it as data rather than evidence of failure. So you're gathering information about yourself. That's the beginning of building a life that actually fits. If you haven't done it, go to the description, do my happiness quiz, a personalized report, a PDF that you get to see where you're at. I want to end with this. You were never too much. You were just in rooms that were too small for what you carry. I hope this has been helpful. As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.